A warm welcome to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for our annual celebration of the nominated live-action and animated shorts. And of course, soon to be announced 2 Oscar Shorts winners are amongst these nominees. I'm sure you'll have your own opinions about that. Tonight also brings a chance to hear from our filmmakers. And we have a very special host for tonight who you'll get to meet in a little bit. I'm John Bloom, chair of the Short Films and Feature Animation Branch and one of its 3 governors, along with Bill Croyer and Bob Rogers. This year we had a record eligible 60 animated and 144 live-action shorts, which came a third from our qualifying film festivals and 2/3 via theatrical screenings. Our big screen reviewing committee was well supplemented this year by the availability for the very first time of online streaming of all the eligible films, greatly increasing our judging participation, which gets us to our second round of the 10 shortlisted shorts in each category, also newly available online. Judging involvement skyrocketed by more than triple and remains high within the full Academy where our Oscar winners are chosen. The availability of our nominees to Academy members on screenings and DVD creates high voting levels. In our continuing efforts to support the wide distribution of the nominated shorts, we are experiencing also a heightened expansion in getting these shorts out to an ever-widening and eager worldwide audience in both box office and ancillary distribution channels. Box office is up a strong 13% this year in North America, hitting 49 states, running on 563 screens, plus more than 180 additional screens internationally, projected to crest domestically at over $2.7 million. The addition this year of all the big U.S. theater chains, Cinemark, Carmike, AMC, and Regal, who have begun to exhibit the shorts, is very promising for the future. The nominated shorts will also be available. The nominated shorts will also be available for electronic sell-through, pay-per-view, and video on demand. Our growth in shorts distribution Our growth in shorts distribution is nothing short of phenomenal. I want to give a special shout out to Shorts HD, our theatrical distribution partner for over 10 years now, who believed in this release and put their money where their mouth is, which fostered this phenomenal growth. We have 10 great shorts upcoming, so allow me to introduce our MC for tonight, a master animator in addition to having made a variety of significant creative contributions to the DreamWorks films Madagascar, Sinbad, Cimarron, and Kung Fu Panda. She is an Oscar-nominated director for Kung Fu Panda 2, which earned a worldwide box office haul of over 2/3 of $1 billion. And yes, that's a B for billion. And just now, directing again on Kung Fu Panda 3, currently in wide release. We are proud to have her as a member of the Short Films and Feature Animation Branch Executive Committee, and she is even being seen now on TV in a heavily running commercial. Can I please get a little pandemonium as we welcome our host for tonight, Jennifer Yu Nelson.
Thank you, John. And thank you to the Academy for having me here tonight. We are talking shorts tonight. It's going to be amazing. So everyone I know wants to make a short. Everyone. I mean, all my friends in animation or live action, big movie, small movie, does not matter. They always grab me or there's meetings and they say, I have this crazy idea for a short. I've got to do the short. Come on, let's do a short. And I think, why does everyone want to do a short so badly? Well, there's a very good reason. Because shorts can be really weird. In a short, you could show a guy getting shivved in a very uncomfortable spot. The whole thing could be done in stick figures, or you could show a pregnant lady getting punched out. All of these things, by the way, you're going to be seeing tonight. So, by the way, if there are little children in the audience, this may not be the most appropriate venue. And that's very cool. Shorts could scare moms in Poughkeepsie who will take their kids traumatized from the theaters. They could scare investors away screaming for the hills, if there are any investors. They could have endings so ambiguous that audience members will be utterly confused and will be talking about it for days and then, still be confused. And they can be utterly unprofitable. Freedom. Shorts are subversive. They are risky, they are experimental, and they are by their nature idiosyncratic. And that is because they are personal. Shorts are personal projects made for personal reasons on a personal scale. They are direct main lines into the weird and wonderful brains that make them. And it's because of this that shorts are truly, the purest forms of our craft. Tonight, we're going to be seeing some amazing shorts. We're going to be seeing 5 animated nominees, and followed by an amazing little panel. Then we're going to be having an intermission, and then we'll be seeing the 5 live-action nominees followed by their panel. It's going to be an amazing evening. We're going to see some beautiful things. We're going to pick at some very, very weird and wonderful minds. So thank you for coming tonight to honor the nominees and their amazing work. I hope that you guys have an amazing, fun, and upbeat energy night tonight. And I think we should start off by watching 5 animated nominees for the Academy Award. So let's start with that, shall we? Thank you very much. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you in a little bit.
The prologue is something I'm just completing now. This is an idea for a big film which I had when I was 15 years old, and I thought, I wonder if I'll ever get good enough to do this. It's something that nobody's done. And something happened to me about 3 years ago. I don't know, with all this teaching, all this experience, is that it's like yogurt. It finally just went, and I'm able to do exactly what I can think of. And people say, what's this film about? And I say, well, I'll tell you the working title. And I say, it's called Will I Live to Finish This? And that I really hope I do. if we can stretch this out, because it's an enormous amount of work. And I'm into territory where people have tried to go before and haven't brought it off. I keep thinking animation is so much work and you have to learn. That's why I was reluctant after my first film. That you have to learn so much and I don't know if I really want to do just stuff that looks like cartoons, but they're drawings that walk and talk, and you can put them anywhere and you can do anything. And it just seemed, oh, but it's going to be such a hard journey of learning how to do all this stuff, because I wanted the whole ball of wax. I mean, a lot of guys, very funny artists or very funny animators, they do one kind of thing, but I wanted the whole whammy, sort of artistically greedy or ambitious, anyway, if you want to call it. And that was my goal. I thought, it doesn't matter what I do, I've got to master this damn thing so I can really do anything I want. And I, fortunately, have achieved it while I'm still reasonably healthy and walking around.
Emily.
Would the nominees please come up on stage? Have your seats. Hi. Thank you. How are you? Congratulations.
Maybe ask one more chair. It's my translator.
One more chair,
No,
okay.
it's possible.
We need one more chair, apparently.
Chair, yeah. Sit down.
Someone get a chair.
One more chair,
One
please.
more chair, please. Emergency chair request. Well, while we're waiting for a chair, why don't we introduce our panel? So would you mind going down the row and introducing yourselves?
Hi, my name is Gabriel Osorio. I am the director of Bird Story.
My name is Pato Escala, and I'm the producer of Bear Story.
I'm Richard Williams, and I'm the animator of Prologue.
I'm Imogen Sutton, and I'm producer of Prologue.
My name is Sanjay Patel, and hopefully you know my movie.
I'm Nicole Grindle, and I'm the producer of Sanjay's Super Team.
I am Konstantin Bronzit. I am from Cosmos, and she's daughter of my friend. She just will help me to understand what you are talking about. It. Translator.
First of all, congratulations to all of you, and not all of you are first-timers. There are, of course, multi-nominees and winners here, but congratulations for all of you for being nominated for a Best Animated Short. So I'm going to actually go down the line and talk a little bit about first inspirations and then process. There's actually a lot of great stories behind the shorts that we saw today, and I was wondering if you could speak first, Gabriel, about Bear Story and about where that story came from.
Well, Bird Story is really, for me, a very kind of a personal story, like a family story, and in some way talks a little bit about the story of Chile. I don't know if you know something about the story of Chile. Back in 1973, there was this military regime that took all the socialist government away from the country, exiled, and get a lot of people killed. So one of those people that works for the government was my grandfather. So I grew up without knowing my grandfather. He was in jail and then in Europe for like 20 years. So it really was hard for me growing as a kid and seeing that my government didn't allow me to meet my grandfather and didn't allow him to return to his country only for his political vision. So it was really something that I always feel that was very wrong, very awful, and I try to put that in the movie, to tell the importance of the family, to be together, and try to make a movie that was very telling in a way that could be seen by kids, by new generations. So try to get a message through to the audience that maybe that we must try to not make the same mistake of the past again. So I think that's where the movie really comes from.
And also, Pato, the location, the actual world that is set, it's actually based on an actual neighborhood, right?
I'm not
The actual neighborhood of Chile, the location of the actual Bear Story was set on, was it your childhood neighborhood?
Yeah. A lot of the thing of the film was inspired by my childhood, by the houses of our grandfathers. There is a lot of inspiration we took from Chile, and in that sense, I think it's very a very Latin American movie. But at the same time, it's talk about universal feelings. I really try not to be literal about the story, but try to express the feeling and the emotions that has to do with exile.
It's an amazing story. Thank you so much. So Pato, what does this feel for you? It's a very personal story for him. What does it feel for you to produce this short?
Well, when Gabriel first arrived with the treatment, and we read it in the studio, everybody get really sad. It was a very sad story, and we really wanted to join him in the journey that he was inviting us, and it was a very long journey. It was almost 4 years, and a lot of the team that work in the short film is here with us today, because this is a great achievement, not only for Gabriel and for the team. It's a great achievement for all the Chilean animation and for Latin American animation. Right now, you know, there is or short film and Brazilian feature film in competition also. So it's amazing for us to be representing all these talented creators and all these artists from Latin America. So we're very, very happy to be here today.
Wonderful, thank you. So Richard and Imogen, your amazing short prologue. Apparently this story has been rattling around in your mind since you were 15 years old. Can you talk about the creation of this short?
Well, it's another sad story. When I was a kid, I was very struck when we blew up Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And then we visited Hiroshima later. My uncles were in the war. One was a photographer at D-Day. Another was a Spitfire pilot. Another made airplanes for the ball. Anyway, it's just the constant futility of human behavior. And the innocence of the kid, I suppose, is hopeful. But the mother or grandmother, whatever, has seen it all before.
That's an amazing, amazing story. So, Imogen, how did you get presented? You're longtime collaborators, the two of you. How did you get introduced to this idea, and why did you feel that it would make such a great short?
Well, I think that it's very hard to portray the reality of war. I mean, we all see films, war films and so on, a lot of live action, but there's something about drawing the horror of what men can do to each other, which is particularly potent. I mean, I did notice this evening that there were certain moments in the film when there were serious gasps from the audience. And I think, despite the fact we've all seen a lot of horrible things on film, there's something about drawing which conveys a very powerful message. And it was originally, I think, Dick was thinking about just having the four men kill each other, which shows the total futility of war. But then I sort of introduced the idea that we had to have something hopeful and something positive, which came in the form of the little girl, and something about the female figure, the hope, the other side, the people who watch destruction. And the woman, the old woman at the end, is very important, I think, to show us how war goes on and things don't change. So there's hope and there's hopelessness.
Amazing. Thank you. So Sanjay and Nicole, Sanjay Super Team. This is the very first autobiographical short by Pixar. So this is obviously based on a mostly true story, you said. Can you talk about what this story was and how this became a short for you?
It's got your name on it.
So I'd been working at Pixar for about 10 years, and I think I just kind of hit this burnout period where, I was kind of just a hardcore student of American animation, American art, European art, and I went to 3 different art schools, and nobody had ever opened my eyes to Asian art. And it was only after really scratching that itch with animation and working on so many great films at Pixar that I finally, the window sort of opened up to like take in some new art and some new inspiration. And I discovered a book of miniature paintings from India. And in the book, they had images from my father's shrine at home. And I'd seen these images all throughout my life, but I never read the stories, and I didn't know who these characters were and what the philosophy or the story or the sort of the philosophy behind what the image was trying to convey. And so once I actually read the story behind the pictures, that's when I really became activated and just totally inspired, because what I saw was these amazing characters, these amazing stories, timeless wisdom, and I was like, wow, this is all the things that we try to go for at Pixar and even more. And so many of my friends at Pixar just didn't know anything about it, and I was the first one that was clueless. And so in many ways, it was just for me to just educate myself. And so I would spend all my nights and weekends reading as much as I could, and I would do these sort of book reports, which became these little picture books and illustrated sort of graphic novels that I'd make. And I was really satisfied doing that. And I think that's when I kind of hit this kind of point where it was like, oh man, I'd have to choose, because I was like working all day at Pixar, and at night I was also working, and it was just becoming too much. And I was fortunate to have two different art shows at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. And John Lasseter happened to come across the artwork, because we have actually a small gallery at the studio, and they had actually invited me to put up some of my art there. And so John saw it, and he was like, oh man, you gotta you gotta make a short. And so different producers had contacted me, and I just kept saying no to it, because I just didn't believe it. Well, I didn't want to be a director. There's nothing in me that wants to do that. I'm really happy working by myself when nobody's looking and nobody cares. When somebody's looking and somebody's caring and somebody has money, I just freak out. It's very scary. But yeah, and so they asked a third time, and I finally talked to my dad about it. And I told him what was happening, and he was like, Sanjay, he's like, the studio had supported me for the better part of almost 15, 20 years at that point. And he just thought that for me to not at least try to do what they were asking me to do would essentially create bad karma. That would be, very bad for me. Karma is a word that he takes very seriously. He felt, in fact, that it was my duty, it wasn't just my job, that it was my duty to at least try to do what they were asking me to do. And I tried, and I realized that I was just incredibly scared to put myself out there.
So Nicole, as a producer, did you have to push him to do this?
Well, once we got together, he was on the road to making the film. Just I wanted to comment on what others had said about their stories being, based on sad events. And, I think to some extent this story was as well. The alienation of someone who's the child of an immigrant, both from their parent and from American culture, and I think it's been a really happy homecoming for Sanjay and for a lot of the people who worked on the film, actually. And we found when we've shown the film, a lot of people have come and said, as an immigrant, they felt that they weren't represented in mainstream media, and their experience wasn't valued, and therefore they didn't feel valued. And so it's been really exciting, I wanted to say, to be a part of that story and to, I hope, inspire other similar kinds of stories. So yes, when I started working with him, he was on the path to already, he had accepted the call to make the film. And then, we had an opportunity to build a team. Like I said, many of whom came from a similar experience, and it was great. I mean, the nice thing about working on a short film in a big studio is it's a much more intimate experience for the people on the team. When you're on a feature, there are really big teams, they work in departments, you don't feel like you're, a part of the filmmaking experience at its core, but on a short film, everybody gets to do that. And it was really collaborative. Sanjay is a really collaborative director, and, it was just a great experience overall for the story and also for the filmmaking experience.
Thank you. Konstantin, So this idea for this film came from a dream, apparently. Would you like to talk about that?
How do you know? Yeah.
I might
Yes,
have had a dream.
I understood. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I speak not so good like my colleagues. I just was listening to my colleagues and realized how animators are crazy, really. My goodness, it took so long time from each of us to make so short films. Yeah, only crazy people can do it. Yes. Well, yes. Did you see in my film, in the middle of my film, one shot, the floating bed with two men on it in big space? It was image which came to me in my dream. It's not a tale. It's true, really. And a lot of rubbish can dream, yeah. But this time, when I wake up, I just start thinking what it was. Something strange. Something strange in this image. In 5 minutes of thinking about it, I developed all story to the very beginning and to the very end. It never happened to me before. I thought like the stories like this when directors tell it's special stuff for audience, for press. I never believed in them till it happened to me. It's incredible, really, but it's true. Be careful with your dreams.
That is amazing. But you also spoke about how this was an exercise in showing loneliness. Could you talk a little bit about that?
How do you know everything about me?
I've researched it.
Yes. It's about loneliness, really. If for the first look, it's like about friendship. But if you look a little bit more profound, yes, you are right. It's about loneliness because the links between people, which I show in my film, they don't exist in real life. I would like that such a kind of links to be at least partly in real life, but they don't exist. That's a pity for me. That's why everybody of us a little bit are lonely. That's my thought.
Thank you. We're actually getting close to time, but I do want to ask about process because so much of these films have such a different look from each other. Each one is utterly unique. Could you briefly talk about why you chose a technique that you chose to better tell your story? We start with you, Gabrielle.
Well, we use really primarily CG 3D film, but we use a lot of real media, pictures of drawings that we put in the backgrounds. There are a part that is cut out animation. So we really try to use different techniques to try to get a look that in some way were most unique to us, to our studio, that represents in some way the animation that we are making in Chile. So it's really a mixed kind of way of make animation.
Awesome, thank you. And Richard, you chose a hand-drawn, obviously, because of your history as being one of the greatest animators ever. But why this particular look for this story?
That's the way I naturally draw. I don't draw like Roger Rabbit. I mean, I do it it's commissioned work. This is, and I always did the best I could with whatever I lived like a chameleon. And this is me. This is Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So that's what it is.
Thank you.
Free of pleasing other people.
Thank you. And Patel, why did you choose a style that you chose for yours?
So I'm not a fan of 3D. I know that might go kind of anti to what I've made. But if you look at any one of my picture books and graphic novels, I love 2D. I'm just a sucker for drawing and just something flat. I'm just a big fan of that. But the subject matter that we're doing, I knew straight away that I didn't want to do something flat. In fact, I wanted to really I really wanted this thing to happen that took me 30 years, which was I really wanted this, I don't know, my parents' culture to really take on more dimension than 2D. I wanted it to have 3 dimensions. I wanted it to have more than 3 dimensions. In fact, there's a 3D version, a stereo version of the short film that just looks astounding. And we really sort of turned the knobs on that, especially once the deities are incarnated. And so when we were sort of, everything that I'd read and everything that I'd seen in India about the temple carvings, trying to illuminate and illustrate, oh gosh, these experiences of enlightenment, that's what these temples are. These artisans were working at the best of their abilities. And I just thought, like, wow, we have more tools in our toolbox at Pixar, and it just felt like I really want to take it that extra level that the philosophies couldn't, or those artists couldn't. And so that was the drive, that was the urge, is to really have this kind of enlightenment, sort of transcendental experience for this little boy.
Wonderful, thank you.
I just wanted to say we also had the 2D cartoon in there, as a little tip of the hat to what Sanjay was originally inspired by as a kid. Yay for 2D.
Thank you. And Constantine, why did you choose the style that you chose to tell your story?
What are you talking about?
The actual drawing style.
I mean, when you say something about my style in my film, it's nothing. It's most stupid thing in my film. That's the stuff. Just because I had no money for 3D, it's funny for you, not for me. And I asked one of my colleagues to be art director. I didn't pay him money, but he agreed. Yes, thanks to him. And I wanted to be my film most simple way as possible because I didn't want to press with some very very artistic visual style. That's all. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And Don Hartsfeld for World of Tomorrow couldn't be here today, but he sends his regards, so congrats to him from afar. And congrats to all of you nominated this year. Good luck to you. Thank you very much. Big round of applause, and please take your seats. All right, we will be having a short intermission, and then we'll be going to the live action shorts after that. So, see you back.
Yeah.
מה אתה עומד כמגולם? תבקש שיביאו גרר.
אמא, שקט אמא. Can we use your phone, please?
will mich nicht umziehen.
Wir ziehen uns jetzt um und gehen uns die Zähne putzen.
Nein,
Doch.
ich will nach Hause.
Das weiß ich, dass du nach Hause willst. Habe ich schon verstanden.
Warum fahren wir nicht nach Hause?
Es reicht jetzt! Tut mir leid. Es tut mir leid. Komm, bitte, lass uns die Zähne putzen.
Tut dir nicht leid.
Es tut mir leid. Es tut mir leid, es geht nicht anders.
Was geht nicht anders?
Es geht nicht anders, es ist halt so.
Was?
Ja, wie es jetzt ist, es ist jetzt so, ich kann es auch nicht ändern. Es ist jetzt einfach so. Wir sind jetzt so weit, wir müssen das jetzt machen. Es tut mir leid. Nicht weinen, Schatz, bitte. Nicht weinen, Schatz. Bitte, Schatz, nicht weinen.
Lass uns nach Hause gehen. Du kannst es ändern.
Петрет, нас ждешь-ме колко tu hens.
Вечем шале гоен. Едиш бурке пон.
Kom, Nesrin, takke mas sjås. Baştarası. Akeni çafu. Bet kaldı diyeceğim. Altar şeysi kurdum. Diye tot. Diye rans. Ina keçe. Diye trafta.
Snap Judgment 1226. Reclusive typographer, invisible to the naked eye. Communication skills of an infant, excels in the art of self-pity.
Hello, would the nominees please come up to the stage? Hi, wonderful to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, wonderful to meet you. Hi, great to meet you. All right. Would you please introduce yourselves to the audience one at a time, starting from you?
My name is Basil. I'm the director of Ave Maria.
My name's Hank Hughes. I wrote and directed Day One.
My name is Patrick. I made Everything Will Be Okay.
My name's Jamie Donegue. I'm the writer and director of Shock.
I'm Benjamin Cleary. I wrote and directed Stutterer.
I'm Serena Armitage, and I'm one of the producers of Stutterer.
First of all, congratulations to all of you for your nomination. And today we'll just talk a little bit about your creative process and where your ideas came from. So Basil, could you please speak first about where your idea for your short Ave Maria came from. And interestingly, your father has a bit of a religious background. Is this something that gave you a perspective to the material?
Well, my father is a preacher from Nazareth, evangelical, not Catholic. But next to our house was a Carmelite convent. It was a big, massive convent with 7 nuns who live in total silence. And I was preparing for a feature, totally different, but I thought I need to do a short film, and I was quite curious about these nuns who live in a bubble. And so I thought what would be most annoying to them is to bring a bunch of a noisy family into their house and just mess up their silence. And so when you're in Palestine and Israel, so you've got some Palestinian nuns, what do you bring in to mess up their day? Some Jews. So I wanted to do a comedy of an awkward situation. For these people, it's a total nightmare with the situation they're in. For us, it's funny because we live outside that bubble.
That's wonderful. And it's already been very much appreciated by a great audience. You actually have it being screened on many different networks now. You actually have it.
We've had a few, yes. It's not yet. We've sold it to TV, but they're all screening it on Oscar night before the ceremony.
Wonderful. Thank you. And one thing before I move on, actually, I'd like to point out, you've actually managed to meld comedy and religion together, which is something that's actually very touchy, and somehow managed to make people appreciate that. Is that something that you were thinking about doing when you were creating this, sort of bring everyone together from different religions, especially with your background?
For me, because I was brought up in Palestine, Israel is the Holy Land, and you've got all the 3 religions, and everybody's bashing that they're right? And then when you look at them, they're all the same, really, and they just speak different languages. But it is somewhat absurd about how similar they are and how different they are, and being young and my parents dragged me to church 3 times a week. You know, you kind of fall asleep and you daydream. So this is my little rebellion.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, Henry, so 2 tours in Afghanistan. So you have a bit of experience to draw from to come up with this short.
Yeah, it's so I was in the Army for like 5 years. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan. On my second tour, I had a female interpreter. She's this like Afghan-American girl that was really cool. And I just figured that when the time came to make a movie, that her point of view would probably be somehow able to illuminate things that say a story about someone like me. We'd already seen that story so many times. And somehow have this like woman very much in a man's world, hopefully within a very like kind of like feminine issue. We could maybe look at the masculine world that way.
That's really amazing, especially since with your own personal experience being there. I mean, writing this material, trying to get audiences to see what it was like, and what were you trying to get people to access when you're making this film?
Sure, yeah. Actually, some people talked about it earlier, some of the animators. I mean, there's some other war films here too, so I know that we'll probably address it. But we've seen a lot of violence and combat, and it's to the point that it doesn't really faze us anymore. So it's how can you find something that will affect you, so that the big obstacle was that I don't know what to reduce what war felt like, or rather really what war is, but I could tell you what it feels like. And so to find some sort of conduit that could translate that. And so I thought maybe going to creation and birth and a very feminine area might get us to a point that there's something that is, you can get to those sublime moments of things that are shocking and scary and also beautiful and precious.
Thank you. I think you heard the shock audience, the reaction. Everybody's going, when the moment with the baby and all that stuff. So I think you've achieved that. And also, you've actually mentioned your muse, the translator that you were talking about. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about her and what your interactions with her was like there, what you saw her
Absolutely.
doing?
Yeah, so I mean, every Afghan that I met, she was my voice. And it got to the point that I would wear like a dog's leash on my body armor, and she would hold the other end because it was like tough for her to like walk at night. It's really tough actually. I don't know if you guys ever walked at night, but it takes a long time to get used to it. There's something about like Siri on your phone is programmed as a default as a female voice, or like your GPS is a female voice, and every military equipment, it's always a female voice of the machine or of like the computer, and it's because it cuts through like a tank crew or a cockpit, or somehow just the feminine voice. Like there was this one female pilot, a helicopter pilot, and you would hear her come on the radio once every while, and everyone just stop and listen. And there's something about that when you had a woman as your voice, it gave you a new perspective.
Wow, thank you. So Patrick, so how
Hi.
did you come up with this story, and what is it that's special for you?
It started all out with a newspaper article. I read an article about a father who kidnapped his own child during a divorce, and I was always wondering. I was reading a lot about that, and I was always questioning myself, like, how can someone, like a parent, do something to his kid that is so bad for a kid and claim in the end that he's doing it out of love? And that was a question I was traveling with. I went on a big research trip. I talked to a lot of parents who went through this, to fathers and mothers, both sides, to police, to psychologists, to judges and all that. So I want to get like every single detail. And and out of all this kind of information I got, then I wrote this as a screenplay. It's kind of based on a true event, but I put in everything I got from all this research.
So true event in the aggregate as opposed to a single.
The true event was kind of, the starting point, and I got a lot of, every kind of detail someone told me, like the beginning, that picking up his kid and don't even look at the mother because you hate her so much, and all this kind of stuff. And I wrote like everything in this one story.
That's amazing. And certainly the performance that you actually got for the actress who played Leah, who had never performed before as an actress.
No, it was her first appearance in a film ever. She did something at theater at school, but it doesn't really count. And it was really her. We did a lot of, we casted half a year, like kind of every kid in Vienna. So, but I'm pretty lucky to found her.
Yeah, she seems to be the most mature person in the entire movie.
Yeah, that's right. That was when I was editing that. I was always thinking about that's the only really grown up, who like acts grown up, and even the police, they're like, everybody is like crazy, and she's the only one who has like knows what's right. And but I kind of feel that kids are so often and they kind of know what's right because they didn't get messed up with like growing up and know how the world is like. Not yet,
That's really wonderful. Thank you. So, Jamie.
Hi.
Hi. So, shock. Apparently, this is the first nominated film from Kosovo, made with a crew from Kosovo, and based on a true story. Could you talk about where this idea came from?
Okay, it's in all honesty, I knew nothing about Kosovo at all. And in 2010, I visited the country for 3 days. And then on the second day, the Icelandic volcano erupted. And 5 weeks later, I was still in the country and I couldn't get a flight out. And that's where I got introduced to the country. And I met some incredible, amazing people. And I began to learn about these stories that had happened there during the war. And I just couldn't believe what had happened on our doorstep less than 15 years ago. And very few people knew about this. and I just felt that I had to do something about it. So over the next 4 years, I went back and forth and researched as much as I possibly could about the country and what had happened, and spent time with the families until I wrote this film. And yeah, you're right, it's the first ever nomination for Kosovo, and I've just got to say, as well as most of my UK crew, half the Kosovan crew and cast have flown all the way out here to be here today, so I'm really, really honoured you've done that. Thank you.
Very powerful. It must mean a great deal for the country and the people there to actually have this level of recognition.
Yes, I mean the support we've had from the country. It was very hard to tackle this and know whether it was the right time or not to tackle it, and how best to do it as well. And I approached it I understood that I wasn't international coming over telling these stories, but I did my very best to really understand what went on and really understand the culture over there. And although I was nervous about showing this, the response we've had from Kosovo has been amazing, and people have said that they're very grateful that these stories have finally been heard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Benjamin and Serena, apparently
Hey.
you guys were roommates when you came up with this idea.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the genesis of this idea and how you got it together?
Sure, yeah. Well, the initial idea actually came, I was online, I saw something about this gentleman who, had a pretty severe speech difficulty, but he gotten to the point where face-to-face he was, it was pretty much imperceptible. But when he would get on the phone, it would just all come flooding back because it was just his voice on show, This just really, it struck a chord with me, it really stayed with me, this idea, and I started to think about, what it might be like navigating through life with something like this, with your, ability to express yourself sort of taken away. And, I had a good friend growing up who had a severe stutter, so I got to see firsthand what that was like. And, I think growing up anyway is so difficult and has so many challenges. But if you get the ability to express yourself taken away, it becomes even more of a challenge. So I kind of had that personal attachment, I think, to the idea. But in terms of the script, it was one of those scripts where, as I was writing it, these ideas started coming, to me about, like, for instance, exploring the dichotomy between his interior world, which is wonderful and kind of, charming, and then, his external world, which is, much more cut off, and to use voiceover to try and, portray that. And these kind of ideas were exciting me as I was writing. So, that's a good sign for me. If I get the end early and I get these, things that are keeping me almost like an audience member excited, it's a good sign. So, that was happening with the script. And then, luckily, I had, great friends, like Serena and Shan, the other producer, who warmed to the script, and were just incredibly supportive. And even though it was this crazily ambitious sort of thing to make on $5,000, they said, no, we'll do it, we'll support it, we'll jump on board with the vision. So yeah, it was great. It was I couldn't have done it without those guys and everyone who was involved. There's Michael Paliadimos, the DP, is here in the audience too. His first ever film too, I will add. So, and Nico Casal, the wonderful composer, is here too with us. So yeah.
So Serena, would you like to talk about some of the dynamic of how this came about with a bunch of friends together?
Yeah, I mean, we knew we wanted to do something together. We talked about a few ideas, and Ben had written several really good scripts. But I think when we read the script for Stutterer, both Shan and I, on a first reading, were really kind of moved by it, and just kind of felt it was definitely the one. And then actually Ben was working in studio with Michael and had seen that he had a great talent and wanted to get him on board. And then Nico, the composer, was also a friend of somebody who was in the studio. So we were all kind of really close to each other in Hackney. Sean lived just down the road. So it was great to do a project like that with such a core group of mates, because it was pretty much what we talked about for 18 months. So
all of our other friends hate us.
Yeah.
It's only us left. No, it's pretty much all we were talking about. So, but the nice thing is that we started this out, as good friends, became even better friends, and we're still really good friends after all this time, which is nice. You know, I've seen it go other ways. So, yeah.
That's very good. Thank you very much. So I'd actually like to talk a little bit about, I think you've done a feature film, right? You've done a film not beyond a short? No, not yet.
I've done a documentary.
Documentaries, but you've done a longer format film. But now that you guys have done a short and gone through the process of going through the short, are you feeling like the short process helped you tell your story better than a longer format story? Or is it something that you feel like you really want to continue on to do a feature film?
For me, I'm moving on to a feature film, but I learned so much doing the short that it kind of altered my strategy in my working on my feature film, whether it's my writing skills I've developed or choosing my next project. I had one lined up and I thought, okay, if it was this tough making a short, it's going to be tougher doing that feature, so maybe I'll do something a bit more manageable. So my next film is a bit more manageable than my original plan.
How about you, Henry?
I love the short format. I think you can really do so much with so little. It's almost like a unplugged album or something. So I will miss making shorts, but I do want to move on and try a longer form. I think that you can really dive into people's lives and features, or really dive into lives and some great television that's happening right now.
Patrick?
You know, when I was never thinking about, like, that was a story I wanted to tell, and it fit on 9 pages of a treatment. So, and it's a thesis film from my film school, and if I would come up with, like, I want to make a feature, they would look at me and say, no. So there was, you know, but I'm writing a feature right now, and yeah, I you know, in film school you kind of have to do shorts because there's no much more money, and you know, it's very good when you can do something in a couple of days and try out a lot and maybe fail with what you're doing, and then move on to the next thing, and that's very good to in making shorts, and especially in film school.
To be honest, making that short felt like making a feature. It was a lot of hard work. I love the short format. I think a lot of people underrate it and don't understand how hard it is to get right. But I think next, I would love to go back to Kosovo, but I would like to go further into the stories, and that would be more on a feature side, I would say.
Yeah, I'm hoping to move on to a feature now, which will be, you know, loosely thematically linked to Stutter, but not with the same characters. But I think, you know, the short format, it's a great thing because it teaches you how to be very economical with your writing. You know, everything that should get dropped that doesn't, you know, progress a story or advance character, you know, has to get dropped, and you've got to get to the point very quickly and be concise. So I think it's a really good learning platform, and I'm going to make another short, I think, but you know, develop a feature alongside that.
Yeah, and just to, in terms of the short format, again, what you said earlier about sort of them allowing, you know, them being weird, I thought that was great and very true. And like what I love about the short format is the fact that it allows people to be experimental, and you don't have so many voices feeding in, and you can really make something that is your own product. So I'd always like to keep making shorts as well as doing features as well, hopefully.
Wonderful. To wrap up, would each of you like to say what you wished your audience members would get after seeing this film, especially after seeing the reactions from the crowd watching your film? What do you have wished that people who walk away from your short would be feeling?
Well, for me, everybody tends to see images from the Middle East and the Arab world in a certain way, and I'd like them to walk away having seen something a bit different on a human level, and you know, just showcase what Arab cinema could be.
You know, it's funny, like at some point your film isn't your film anymore. I mean, it's like I have some actors here and some people from AFI, my producer, my editor, my cinematographer. It's like their film too, and then it's your film when you watch it and you take your life and you look at it through that lens. And so it's almost like I could only present what I felt was honest, and I think it's up to you to figure out what you think about it. I used to hate that answer, but like the more people who've seen the film, like the less it becomes mine. I start to understand why people say that.
You know, I wanted to make. I kind of hate to tell afterwards what I wanted to tell because I want to show it in the 30 minutes I got. So, you know, I wanted to make a small and truthful film, and you know, I hope that comes along.
I don't know, I set out with a very simple message that I was just hoping that just maybe one or two people would begin to look at this area in the country of Kosovo and what had happened there. And obviously, since all of this, a lot more people are looking at it. So I'm very grateful for that. But I think more so the message I was trying to put across by presenting it through children is that in a way that I don't know, our lives are so similar but yet so different just because of where we're born. But these things are continuing to happen, and history is repeating itself, and that's very sad. So hopefully if this film can go some way to highlighting that and making people think, then that would be great.
Yeah, I think I'd echo, you know, what some of the guys are saying. I think what you take home from a film is a very personal thing to every person. If someone, you know, watches the film and they're affected by it, and it speaks to them, that's great. And you know, if it gets people to look at some of the issues sort of dealt with in the film in a new light, that's amazing too. But yeah, for me, it's when you make a film and you present it, it's everyone's personal take home, I think.
Yeah, and I agree really exactly the same. My favourite sort of reactions are when someone says something, has a fresh take on the film that I haven't heard before, and you know, people are discussing it and talking about what it means.
Wonderful. Well, congrats to all of you. Your films are amazing. Let's give a big hand of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.